Okay, so these are the answers to your ablative absolute story search. We're going to take a look at the 5 different examples of ablative absolute and the best way that you can translate those. If your translation is a little different and you want to ask me about it, feel free to do so after the video. So our first one was found in line 3. Quibus verbis auditus pueri maxime gaudebant. So you can see the ablative absolute here in blue. The whole phrase is quibus verbis auditus, but the actual ablative absolute is verbis auditus, as indicated by these ablative endings on the perfect passive participle and the noun verbis. Quibus is an adjective describing verbis and does play into the translation. So the most common way people translate is to use the literal translation. So the literal translation of this word is which words having been heard. Sounds kind of strange. So maybe we want something with a little more flow. So we can always try when these words had been heard. Now you wouldn't often think of translating quibus these, but which really just doesn't make sense in this sentence, at least not in English. And you can also change it to an active form when they had heard these words. So any of those 3 are going to be acceptable. And of course, you may have used something other than when. You may have used since or after. It just depends on what you're looking at. The boys rejoiced greatly. So the next one comes in line 6, and it is Marcus Vestamentis ex utis nunc in palaestram exeamus inquit. Excuse me. So here you can see the participle here in the ablative absolute with the participle ex utis, and Vestamentis is our noun here. So you can see these two very clearly, no extra words, and they're separated here by commas from the rest of the sentence. Because remember, the ablative absolute is not necessarily connected to the sentence. So if we look at this sentence translation, we have to start with Marcus because it's first. So we start with Marcus, and then we translate the ablative absolute. Literally, it translates to his clothes having been taken off. Now the his here is in parentheses because it's implied and it's not actually there. You don't necessarily have to put it in parentheses. You just need to probably have it in there. It won't sound quite right. So what are our other choices? Well, when his clothes had been taken off, having taken off his clothes, and when he had taken off his clothes. All 4 of these are valid answers for this question. Okay, and so as we finish the translation, we can see said, now let us go out into the exercise room. Okay, so there we have the full translation of the ablative absolute in the sentence. So the third one is kind of small. It was in line 11. You may have looked at things like alter sero in line 8, but again, just because something is ablative doesn't mean it's an ablative absolute. Okay, so in this case, we have nemo vestimenta me custode seripere potest. In this case, the ablative absolute is right here. It's the me custode. Okay? And here we have a pronoun with a noun. So we're seeing that construction we talked about where the essay, the participle essay, is left out. So we're just using those. And so we have to make sure we translate that participle, but it's not in the sentence. So there's really one good way to translate the sentence, and that is, no one is able to steal clothes while I am on guard. And again, we're assuming that the participle here would have been a present participle, and so we're using the present tense there. All right, so number 4 is the long one. It's quite a mouthful. Tum pueri vestamentis traditus in tepidarium intraverunt et inde in caldarium ubi erat magnum turbum hominem. Vestamentis traditus is the participle phrase here, the ablative absolute, made with that perfect passive participle. You'll notice most of these are perfect passive, and that's because of the tense that the story is written in. So let's see how this one translates. We start with, sorry about that. We start with then the boys. Okay? So now we have to do our literal translation, which would look something like their clothes having been handed over. But we could also translate it when their clothes had been handed over, or having handed over their clothes, or even when they had handed over their clothes. So there are varying ways in which you can translate that as well. And then, of course, you need the end of the sentence, which is entered the warm room, and from there the hot room, where there was a great crowd of men. So we have all those choices, so compare that to your answers and see what you got. Now the last one is on the back page. It was on line 21. Fur sexto wiso yam walde time bat. So this one is kind of short, but again, we have sexto and wiso, that noun, and that perfect passive participle, creating an ablative. Here we've got this singular form here. And we'll talk a little bit about the different choices in that as we go along further. But let's take a look. We have the thief, okay, and these are our participles here, translations, our ablative absolute translations. Sextus, having been seen. When Sextus had been seen, since he had seen Sextus, was now afraid. Sorry about that capitalization. We'll just deal with it right here. But you can see the sentence here is well put together and everything works quite well. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. And once you're done with this, we'll move on to the next assignment. Thank you.